Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel, Art Classes My Way. Today we are going to be covering, and this little project here may look familiar from a previous video, we are going to be covering when, not if, when one of your base wires breaks. And this is a situation that's going to be by a case-by-case basis. In this case, normal circumstances, I would completely unweave this thing, put a whole brand new bottom wire in, and then go from there. But then I wouldn't be teaching you anything. So this is in like extreme case scenarios where you have made it all the way to the end of a very humongous project, and unraveling the whole thing just isn't going to be possible. You might as well just start the whole thing over again. So here is one thing that you can do just doing cold connections, and it is a pretty simple thing compared to the alternative. So what we are going to do, as you can see here, we pretty much got this guy taken care of from here to here. So I'm going to make it to where these the top rung of weaving going on here, that's basically the biggest support as far as merging a new wire into this whole piece. These are the key portions of the weave, really. The smaller pieces are just more decorative. So I need at least 2 of these guys, 3 if possible, and 3 is very possible in this case, to be supporting a new wire going through. And you can see where this guy has snapped when I was trying to form him to make a prong. So he's still, you know, quite salvageable. There's quite a bit of wire still here, so I would just boop, straighten him out with a pair of square nose here. So I just kind of like lightly rotate him inside here to get him relatively nice and flat. Now that I've gotten that done, and you can just cut yourself a whole new base wire if you need to. That is not a big deal. If you think you're just going to come up short in the end on your project, just go ahead and cut yourself a longer piece. Now, all I'm doing here is just unraveling everything I've done back to about here. So there was one top piece here. I've already gotten that unraveled, and then I'm going to go back to at least this guy. All right. And there we have it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my nippers here, and I'm going to kind of extend him outwards a little bit, just kind of pulling it apart just a little. So I probably want, I'm going to cut it right there. I don't want to unravel too much because I want something that the new wire or broken longer piece can slide into a little bit, so that way I have something to hold while I'm wrapping. So you just want some of these little hoops for him to fall into, but you don't want to do it right underneath if I put this all back together, you don't want to do it right here, because then this one wire that's going all the way around, it's not supporting anything. It's supporting a weakened area. So really, I kind of want it to be in between in this area if you scrunch it all back together. So, and pick the right direction. You will want to turn your nippers to the point where the end that cuts things flush is going to be the end that stays in the piece. You want to kind of end up falling in between these wires. All right. And you can see there is my little nub, nice and flush cut. And nice and flush on that end, and actually pretty flush on this end. Let me go ahead and just square this little tip up here, because this is the end it broke off, and this is the end I kind of want to have hidden. because it did get a little bit blurred up. And a file works just as well. All right. Now this is always a pain in the butt to do. Is just getting it going and getting it started, and you can't really tape him. And it's just a big old pain in the bottom. But perseverance, like I said, in a lot of cases, completely starting over is just not an option sometimes. So we'll go ahead and 1, all right, there we go. Slide it back, and you can see this wire is pretty loose, but right now this is a little bit janky, but for now I can fix it in a few minutes once I get a little bit further and I've got him more permanently affixed in here. Right now that's about as good as you can wish for at the moment. So now I need to put a long one in there, so it's 1, 2, and in between 3. All right, so this piece did not get supported by as many as I took out. I took out 3. We did have a booger in the middle, but it's going to be a pretty small booger to where it's going to be not too terribly noticeable. And once I put my prong in here, and if you want to see more about making prongs and things like that for stone settings, which is what this is, I do have a video on that you can go and watch, and the video also explains the weave that I am using here. So just go ahead and put my prong in, because that is going to be a very big support. Once I get done with this prong correctly this time, don't break it, then start weaving again. It's going to be just as strong as if it never happened. Now when you go to form this whole piece around whatever stone, or in my case a stone, whatever it was that you were doing when your base wire broke, just make sure that when you go to shape it, maybe use your square nose, especially since this piece is going to be going over a straight area, and I am going to fix on it a little bit more. It's just playing around with it with a poker and spacer and different things like that until you are happy with it. But when I go to shape it, it's going to be supporting it with a tool first, then shaping it. This part is over a straight part of the stone. If I can grab it here. It is this piece, and it's going to be going more or less down a very subtle area where, you know, it's not like it's on the bottom where there's going to be a lot of bending involved. So it's not too terribly big of a deal where it is. It's just going to be, give it a little squeeze, a little bit of extra support when I go to shape it. So, all right, now And all right, and now as far as this guy wire goes, he's just like any other base wire. He's in there pretty good, especially with that prong going on. Adjust this prong a little bit here. But, and then the actual mending area, it's going to need some help and some work to kind of get hidden again, but it won't be too terribly awful. It won't be like starting completely over from scratch, that's for certain. And making sure that broken bit is good and down there. And you can definitely see that the count is off a little bit there. But in the overall scheme of it, when, especially on something like this, where the wire weaving is not the focus, and this piece is definitely not going to be a competition piece of any kind, it's going to be pretty much unnoticeable. The best thing to do, though, honestly, again, if you've not gotten any further than what you see that I've gotten here, just start over. This is a technique for only when you are at the very end of a very big piece and things have just gone awry. Otherwise, just start over. The other option to do with something like this that has happened is soldering. That's going to give you the most strength, the most durability. You're going to have to put it in pickling once you get the actual solder done. It is going to be pretty sooty, pretty dirty. You're going to have to shine him back up. That might involve putting it in a tumbler, or a rock tumbler is one of the other terms for it. They're pretty much the same thing. You're probably just going to want to use a more, not necessarily an industrial rock tumbler, but you're going to want something better than the $50 ones that you can get in the kids section of a toy store. So that is pretty much that. Now I'll just continue on with this weave and put him around this guy and put this guy on a necklace. It's a simple concept and a simple idea, but in practice it is not as easy to actually make happen. You're going to get a lot of tools involved and you are going to get frustrated. So it could be something that you may want to practice more than anything, and it is really a last resort kind of a deal. And it is very much a lot like adding base wires to a project. So if I wanted to turn this into a 3-wire project, a lot of the exact same thing will be happening as far as adding another wire to this. And I do also have a video on adding base wires that you can go and check out as well. I hope this helps you guys out. I'm trying to keep this video short. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what it is that you want to learn in the comment section down below. That is how this website is supposed to function. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks for hanging out, and have a great day, guys. Bye! Alright, I bet you guys thought I was done. I ended up deciding to give you guys an update on how this piece turned out in the end. I did know that by showing you that technique with such a small bit of wire weaving that I should have gone ahead and redid the entire base wire that was going on. I wasn't that far into it. It's not a big deal. But I did go ahead and complete it, and quite a few things did go awry for the piece that I was doing. Like I said, this is a pretty small piece for something that was pretty catastrophic, like my base wire breaking. It ends up kind of, this video is a little bit at the end here about rolling with the punches. and trying to salvage something rather than just scrapping it and throwing it all away. As you can see here, he is completed. Now that base wire had broken on me, there ended up being a gap that was too big between these wires, and it just did not want to work out. So I just curly cued them for a more decorative element on the back, along with securing this guy down. And you can see that pretty much this wire that broke ended up getting rolled around to the side. So when you view this guy from the side, you're really seeing mostly just that top wire there. And the reason I ended up putting probably the more decorative element on the back was because that wire just did not want to end appropriately, I guess is really the best way. He just didn't want to work with me. So there he is. He's all lashed together. And then something else happened while I was working with this piece. Yeah, he broke again, except this time it was the top wire. I'm not going to blame the bad cat this time. This was purely my own fault as to why this happened. So I ended up turning that into a decorative element. Now, by all accounts, this wire that's underneath it, you can see that should have been pretty much a blank wire, since that base wire had ended up snapping. When I looked at it and I started working with it, trying to make the piece feel like it was all intentional, it just didn't feel right leaving that wire. So basically, when things just go wrong, and especially when you are like all the way to the end here, like I was with this piece, when everything just started being angry with me, maybe set it aside, give it a few days, maybe even might have to give it a week to get less pissed about it. Trust me, I was getting pretty angry. I was about ready to throw the whole thing into the scrap bin and just say, forget about it, I'll start over. But I do like how this ended up. You got this nice little decorative element in the back. This side does feel very much like the back. That was a weird trimmer, sorry. And this side really feels like the front. And with this piece being so thin like he was, I still got some shaping to do. Being as thin as he just wasn't thick enough, or I should have used a much more narrow wire to keep it from caving in on the back, even before I started doing this netting across the back here. It just did not want to work. It just kept folding around to the front or folding around to the side. It did not want to be in between these two wires. So by folding it around to the back, I ended up making this a lot more secure in its little bezel here. And a lot of bezels are done that way. So it wasn't like it was a huge deal. And then trying to get this guy to tighten up, because, I made this wire here, the length, to go on the side. Well, now that he was wanting to roll around to the back to get that security, well, you know what? All of a sudden, it wasn't a big deal that this wire had snapped on me, because now I can roll these two wires up and tighten it as it needed to be tightened. So, just because things are not going the way you want them to, sometimes maybe just thinking about what you need to do, thinking on the fly, and as long as the piece looks like everything you did was intentional all the way through, everything will work out just fine. Just sometimes, pieces don't want to do what you want them to do. So be flexible. Not everything's concrete and set in stone. If you are making a piece that is concrete and set in stone, and he just wants to fight you, well, maybe it's just time to give up that fight. And let him be what he wants to be, because sometimes that's the way art is. It'll be what it wants to be, not necessarily what you envision for it. So I hope maybe this can help you guys out. And again, the technique I showed you, it's not a bad technique. It was just a bad technique for something this tiny. And for something that I knew that I should just unwove the whole thing and got a new base wire and just started over. But overall, in the end, I think it ended up turning out to be a very nice piece. It's going to make a lovely little drop necklace. Thanks for continuing to watch. I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for hanging out.